In this video, I share my mix process used in every song within Universal Audio's Luna. Hey, I'm Scott Max, songwriter-producer, also known as the Ramblin' Man. Let's dive into Luna and I'll share how I set up a mix. On the left-hand side here, you will see that I have a series of groups: drums, bass, guitars, acoustic, keys, lead vox, BGs, which is the background, inputs, which I use, V-comp, which are some compressors for vocal chains. I have the effects group. I have Brauer-inspired, which I'll get into, and you'll see the different colors. So color coding is quite important for workflow. It certainly is for me. So the very first thing I'm going to talk about is the mix buses. Brauer-inspired is a method Michael Brauer created, and it's a method of mixing that I've adopted that works for me. Here on the bottom, there are a series of buses: bus A, bus B, bus C, bus D, bus E, and bus V. Within each of these buses, there are different plugins. Bus A has the keyboards and the effects going into it. Now, bus B has the bass and drums going into it. Drums and the bass also go to this bus E, and there's no processing on bus E. So for group C, we have the guitars and the acoustic. Now, bus D is where I send all the backing vocals, and we have two different plugins there. We have an MHB Green, and we have the BX Digital V3. Bus E is a channel where I send the drums and the bass to without any further processing. The final bus is bus V, and this is where I send all the lead vocals. So let's bring the lead vocals up. Now, the idea here is that I send the vocals, all the individual vocal tracks, to these compressors here on the right-hand side, and then I mix these compressors to get the sound that I want on the vocal. And then all these compressors then go to bus V, and then I can control the output of all the compressors with one fader. And basically all these other ones, once I've balanced them and how I want it to sound in the song, they'll stay static. And this is the one I'll maybe ride if I want to bring automation and bring the vocal up and down. And all these different compressors just really give you different kind of head tones. I don't use the same one every time. Quite often this TLA 100 will be quite prominent, or the Blue Stripe, the 1176. Pawn Shop as well is one of my favourite ones to use. Now below there we have the Kirchhoff EQ, just with a couple of frequencies ducked out, and that goes across the board. And then we have the SSL console just below that. And that's the vocal chains. Now for every song, I'll lay it out so that I know exactly where each section is. So I have like along the top here, so the markers. So I have intro, verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, a turn, verse 2, pre-chorus, chorus, post-chorus, a down chorus, then a pick-up chorus, and then the outro and the end. Now for drums, if I'm not using a live drummer, I'll use Kontakt and I'll use the Shape synth from Luna. Now Kontakt, I tend to use Butch Vig drums, and for Shape, let's bring up Shape. I kind of move between the different kits on there. They just sound fantastic. Well worth checking out. Now, if I've programmed some stuff like you can see here, what I do is I'll then bounce them to audio. So I'll print them to audio, and then I move them into these different tracks here. So these are pre-made tracks that have some EQs and settings that I use. And once I've done that, all I do is I change the grouping for the ones for the Kontakt and the Shape instruments, and I put them in this folder here called Hidden. So if I click Hidden, they then disappear. I've got them muted and I can go back to them if I need to. If we have a look at what I would have on a track, for the bass drum, I have Hitsville EQ, and then I have the Kirchhoff again. Now below that, I have the sends, so I'm sending to bus E. That's the one that doesn't have any processing on it. So we have a send to Sound City, and then we have this other processing called kick punch for the kick drum, and then snare punch for the snare drum. I'm also sending out to the Valhalla effects, so that's for the reverb. So if I bring up the effects groups, I scroll up here, you'll see Sound City. So for this particular song, I was looking for a particular sound, and Sound City seemed to give me that sound. So for the drums, if I bring that up here, I'll bring it across, and there we go. So all I'm doing here is I'm using the corner of the room, and I'm just using the standard setting that's there, and I'm sending a little bit from the drums. So I'm getting the dry version, and then I'm getting the wet mix as well. I've already gone through all these drum tracks, and I've gain staged them so that they're not peaking as they go to the main output. The next instrument we have is the bass. Bring up the bass. And for the bass, I have 4 tracks. So I have the bass body and I have the bass neck. I have a dub bass and then I have a sub bass. Now, I don't always use these, but it just depends on the song, really. But what I always do is I split the body of the bass from the neck so that I can control that with 2 different faders. Let's have a look at the processing there. So on here we have for the bass body, we have the Avalon 737, and then we have the black box, and then we have the SSL channel strip as well. Is that over there? Okay, those are the settings. And for the neck, we use the LA2. Just move that up. LA2A. And then we have the console as well. And we have the Abbey Road. There we go. And these are the ones used just to get that articulation on the guitar neck. Next up is the guitar group. Okay, we have 7 different tracks here. And again, you can see I've gain staged these. They're all set, ready. They're not going to be peaking. So I'm using an amp. So I'm using the Showtime 64 tube amp. And then I'm sending to the Sound City again. So let's bring up Sound City. So that's on the effects group, Sound City. So like I said before, I was trying to get a particular sound. Next up, let's see acoustic guitar. So if we go into the acoustic guitar. Now on this one, again, I'm going to the Sound City. Then if we go down to keys. So on keys, once again, I've printed this from MIDI to audio. And I'm using Sound City again, just to get that room sound. I'm using Valhalla, the reverb. And the final part to talk about here is the main output. So this is the mix bus. So I use the Chandler Germanium, and I have these settings on Michael Brauer setting. And on the feedback here, I'll maybe dial that back slightly depending on the bass. I then have Puff Puff by Kornef, and I just use the default setting because it just boosts the output. It's just incredible. The last thing I use when I'm mixing is I'll use Slate Digital, and I'll use their VSX headphones and this software. And my favourite room to use is this one here, which is Mike Dean's studio. So there you have my mix process that I use in every song. Check out the links below. You'll find lots of content on songs that I've been mixing and producing and also writing. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.